I can play the Delain songs if I want to. At this point, I still feel a little bit traumatized.
Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time on the channel, hit subscribe right now. A long time ago, Martin Westervold started Delain when he left Within Temptation. It was supposed to be his solo project, but that quickly changed and became a band as Delain was getting more and more successful, and not in the least because of the charismatic singer CHARLOTTE Wessels. After releasing one of their best albums to date, fans were pretty surprised to find out a few months ago that the band was actually splitting up. Well, Martin's continuing Delain, but all the other members are now out of the project. At the same time, singer CHARLOTTE has been working hard on solo material, and now a compilation of songs that she has been recording over the last year is going to be released. I sat down with CHARLOTTE for a very open, honest, and at times emotional conversation. At the start of 2020, we have one of the best received Delain albums in the career, Apocalypse and Chill, which was highly prophetic in its title for the year to come.
Yeah, sorry for that.
And then the band splits up.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, in the meantime, you fully embraced every, digital and social platform, writing or finishing songs that you've been working on before. You obviously started a Patreon community for which you start to release a new single every month. And then now we get to a point that some of these songs are being collected on a new album coming out in September. That's quite the journey. How was that for you, dealing with all that change? That was a roller coaster of a year for you.
Yeah, well, it's exactly like you said. I mean, I was and I am still very proud of Apocalypse and Chill. There were struggles that we were dealing with internally within the band. But I think that at the point that the album was released, we were kind of optimistic that we would figure out one way or another to continue. And I mean, factually, Delain did, right? Martin is still continuing with Delain. So, but at that point, I thought that I would be a part of it as well. So we had a calendar stretched with tours and with festivals, and then COVID dropped by. It was really strange to have everything on hold. We all had plans and things all went differently. And then obviously things led to a split with Delain, but way before that, like, I had been planning to start to have some outlet for the songs that I was writing that didn't end up on a Delain record, because I had tried that before. I have had some side projects, but I wanted something that was more free in a way that I could do by myself. So I also, because Delain was so ambitious and it took so much time, that I thought I cannot have another band or like a project to decide, because that's also a commitment. The people that you do that with will also have certain expectations. So for me, it was really, I wanted that outlet. I wanted a spontaneous way of making music, and I didn't want all of the songs that either were not metal at all or didn't fit Delain for whatever reason, or were just surplus, to have an outlet for them. And I ended up with Patreon. So that was kind of good, because that meant that in that time that we were kind of waiting, like, what's going to happen with Delain? Are we going to find solutions? Are we going to be able to play? Are we going to be allowed to play again? Like, within that time, I wasn't just waiting and worrying, but also doing something constructive and positive with my time.
I've got superhuman skin. This madness can't come in. This madness can't come in.
It prevented me from going into like some big black hole of nothing and uncertainty. So that whole experience has been very positive. But yeah, at the same time, there's no denying that the year and also the outcome of, you know, our attempts to fix things, that it was very intense.
There's a lot to unpack in everything that you just said, so I want to address a few of the things, if that's okay. But first, let's do that by focusing on some of the new songs, first and foremost. One of the songs that has been released as a single as well. Obviously, your Patreon fans have listened to many, if not all, of the songs already in some shape or form. But the song "Soft Revolution" is one of the songs that's going to come out. It almost feels like a sequel to "We Are the Others." On the one hand, it feels like a big rallying cry for the misfits out there. On the other hand, it feels like a very deeply personal song, and it's, you know, it seems to channel that departure from Delain as well. You say that no one here is fine, and that's just fine. That is one of those messages that I'm sure resonated really well with everybody, no matter where you are, who you are. Everybody had to deal with things in the last 18 months that you probably weren't ready for. Have you seen different or more personal reactions to these songs than maybe some of the stuff you did with Delain, with other songs that you've done in the past?
I mean, that's kind of always my goal, you know, in order for a song to feel cathartic to write. I have to imagine what it is like listening to the song. So I put myself in the chair of both the maker and the listener. Like, often when I'll be feeling a certain way, I sit down and I think, what would I want to hear at this moment? So in that sense, and I don't know if it's very different, because that's very much the lyrical aspect of things, and also there's a lot of things that put more strength to that, you know, what kind of chords do you put, like what kind of, but I think on a lyrical level that feels very similar to what we've always done with Delain as well. And for me, on a personal level, whenever someone replies like, "Oh, I'm still sad, but I feel less alone," or something like that, you know, then I feel like that was the idea, and then I get that sense of accomplishment, and then also I in turn kind of feel less alone in that feeling. So it's I always feel like for that kind of song to work, it really needs to be an exchange. So if I talk about my feelings in a way that only I can understand, then it will not work.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've done that in the past, where I was so afraid of saying what I feel that I made it so cryptic, that no one know what the fuck it was about. I think with this one, especially in the time, you know, with the pandemic, with everyone kind of feeling lost and overwhelmed or underwhelmed by the year, I was very glad to read that it hit home.
A lot of people are cynical about what is the value or the positiveness from social media and the internet in general, where there's a lot of terrible things being said and done. But has the last 18 months for you also been a bit of a positive awakening, seeing that there is a lot of positive strength in these online communities, and that those communities are stronger than just a few people seeing something or reading something, but that a lot of people take a lot of energy out of it?
It's not necessarily just positive. Like, I'm also skeptical of social media, and I have noticed that you know, you already noticed the difference from within a Patreon community, where everybody actually wants to be there, signed up for it, paid for it even. Like, I'm not taking that lightly. That is a very different experience from just everyone who's like scrolling and clicking by. And I like social media. I like sharing, but I also know that you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And also that if you look at, because it's very curated, you know, if you look at everyone's curated lives for too long, you might start to believe that that's what life actually looks like.
Right.
And you'll become sad potentially. So like, I'm very aware of these things. Still, I really like social media because it's just a very easy way to communicate with people. And I see a lot of positive things happening as well. But that being said, like the criticism I get, for example, within a platform like Patreon is so much more valuable to me than the criticism that you get from someone just scrolling past. Like it's very different in nature. Like if you look at the criticism that you get under a Blabbermouth article and the criticism that I get, you know, on a song within a Patreon channel, it's a night and day difference. And it all has to do with, you know, people actively choosing to be there and people who've got your back, or, you know, people who are scrolling past and looking to troll, you know?
Yeah, for sure. The difference between feedback on a song or calling out a certain piercing, for example.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, even with the feedback on the songs, like that's a good example because like a lot of people were kind of confused when they got to my Patreon and they found, you know, they found so many pop songs or electronic songs. And I kind of had to explain at that point, like, and I think that was not so confusing to people when I was still in Delain, because then they still thought, you know, that the metal songs goes to Delain, and that's exactly what happened, you know. I think this first year especially is very eclectic. Like there's a lot of pop songs, electro songs, because I was still saving the metal babies for the band. And now I released a new song yesterday, like a new song of the month, and this is kind of a doomy symphonic metal track, you know. So, but some people responded to pop songs like, you know, "Ooh, this is not really my thing. You know, I love your voice and it's a good composition. I can see that it's a good song, but please tell me you're going to do some metal songs too." And that's just such a different. Like some of the feedback I've gotten on there, I mean, it's so different from ew, a cow ring, you know. It's it's very different. Sure.
At one point, if it's not already, there's going to be a lot of demand to have you on a stage. Are you then now already thinking about, okay, what is that show going to look like? Are you planning on doing, you know, a set with 10 songs and all 10 are very different, where your audience, you know, really loves 2 or 3 songs and appreciates the rest? Or are you thinking like, I'm going to do a heavier show, I'm going to do a softer show? What are you thinking right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have been thinking about it. I've done like a small set, like a 5-song set recently, where we did mostly the electronic songs. Or we made the vibe, like we made the live arrangement a little bit more electronic, but then I had Timo Somers, who was also in Delain. I had him with me on guitars, and we just basically made like new arrangements for everything. And I had my laptop like next to me on the stage, like in a very prominent position, because I also feel like, I mean, I don't have to pretend like I've got, you know, I play the piano, I have one pair of hands, and he's like, so that's kind of the electronic set that we've done, where we just have a lot of it on tape. I'm certainly thinking about what a live show would look like, and right now I think it would involve, like, you need a drummer, you need a bassist, you know. piano for the first time during a live set, which was, oh man, the first time my hands were going like this, and I was like, how does anyone do this, you know? But so I like the idea that the set would still be very eclectic, but I can very well imagine that at one point you would pick a certain songs that would go well together, and that also would make it practical to play live. And if not, I'm also not against having the laptop on stage, playing along any kind of weird sound that I cannot find a human for.
Yeah. People are going to wonder if a Charlotte Wessels show happens, will it be exclusively Charlotte Wessels songs, or are you going to find potentially, you know, rearranged songs of Delain as well, who you've been, you know, channeling for over a decade? Yeah.
So the way that because of course, you know, we've discussed all of that with the split, and I can play the Delain songs if I want to. At this point, I still feel a little bit traumatized
For sure.
by everything. So I don't really feel like playing the songs, because I feel like it would make me sad. But eventually, I mean, I've worked my ass off for 16 years on all of this. So it's not something where I'm just like, okay, closing the chapter and never doing anything again. You know, I feel like there will be a point where I hope that there will be a point where I'll be like excited to be like, and here's an oldie, you know. That's the way that I you know, when I look at an Anneke van Giersbergen playing the Gathering songs, it's always a special moment in the set. Like it wouldn't feel like that for me at this point, but yeah.
You said before, you know, sometimes I made things so cryptic that nobody understood what I was writing about. Now I want to be a little bit more transparent, straightforward. That is definitely true, but maybe for a few of the songs that you've done, just by the simple fact that you're singing in Dutch, might make it a little bit more tricky for a lot of the fans to fully understand what's going on. One of the songs on the new album will be in Dutch, called Afkicken, which stands for, you know, getting clean in English from drug abuse, from a toxic situation.
Oh, ik zit hier wel goed, ik heb niks meer te klagen. Ben mijn naam alleen vergeten.
The lyrics on the surface seem, you know, can be interpreted as somebody as straightforward as getting out of a personal relationship, a toxic relationship. Again, for those that speak Dutch, it is relatively easy to interpret, but maybe I'm seeing things I shouldn't be seeing. That it's also about, you know, leaving Delain or moving away from Delain.
I can see that. I can see how that is a conclusion to draw, but it's not in this case. Also, like when I wrote this, I had no intention of leaving Delain. Okay, so there's different ways that I do this. When I have a feeling and I want to write about it, but I don't want to write about it. Okay, so for the last song, for example, the last song of the month is very typical. Like I was feeling anxious. I wrote a couple of very anxious lines, but I was like, no, I don't like this feeling. I don't want to acknowledge it, but those lines are good. I'm going to find some fiction that works well with it.
Right.
And then I found some 19th century fiction, and it was, you know, and it worked perfectly. And that way you have the lines in there and you have the conviction in the lines because they come from something that I feel, but it's not about me anymore. You know, that's the way that I do it now. If I feel something, because like I said, the making things cryptic, it hardly works because people will have no idea like what. So I'd rather keep it, but fictionize it, so to speak. So that's the way that I usually do it now. And I actually, with Afkicken, I have a story in my mind I think I'm hoping to make a video for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to make a video for it, and I hope to make the story visual at one point. But so I agree with you. You have several layers. You have the one layer that's just Afkicken, like kicking the habit. Oh, you know, someone's getting clean. The way that the story for me in the lyrics about someone who killed their significant other because they asked for it. But you know,
it wasn't their fault.
As a healthy human being, you're then supposed to think no one asks for that and they're not right. So the third layer that I want to add is in the visual world, is in the story, where you find out that they actually were right to kill that person.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, there's a twist to the story that I haven't told yet. It's going to be in the video, but it's so this one is, I don't know, maybe there was a line in there where it was like, you know, heartfelt, or I can see how, you know, Afkicken, you know, this is something that's been so important to me. So if I'm saying goodbye to it, you also have these kind of withdrawing things, and I've certainly had withdrawing things. So I can totally imagine. But yeah, with this one, I'm more on the fiction side of things.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll stay tuned for the murderous thriller show that's coming our way.
I hope somewhere. I hope somewhere in fall. But yeah, we'll see.
It's not impossible to think we've seen it before. That another established band says, "Hey, Charlotte, we think your voice really fits our sound." Is that, now that you've tasted the freedom of being a solo artist, is that something that you would consider at one point? Or are you like, hey, you know what, I'm even singing Dutch songs, I'm singing pop songs, I'm never going to be able to do this in an established rock or metal band? And to what you said earlier, when you're in a band that is successful, it's really hard to prioritize all the other stuff. Are you thinking about that, or is this way too early to ask you this question?
It is and would be too soon, but I enjoy being a songwriter more than being a singer, and most of these bands have their own songwriters who are who enjoy being a songwriter. And I also know you could say, yeah, maybe you could join in the songwriting, but one experience that I've had in every situation that I've worked with is you know, even now, you know, even if Martijn acknowledges that I've been involved in the writing process, you know, since forever, you still see fans and press, like a lot of people where I think, like, you know, you could have read one biography and known better. But you see so many people, I guess she only did the lyrics, maybe some vocal lines, you know, it's like, like, I don't really want to acknowledge this feeling too much with myself because it's not something to be proud of. But I sometimes do get frustrated when people kind of strip the acknowledgement for my work behind the scenes from me as well. And I really enjoy doing all of the things myself. I enjoy being in a creative process where I start somewhere and I finish somewhere, and I go from start to finish without being interrupted with thoughts or intrusions that something should be different. Like I kind of enjoy just the freedom of things now. It's a very long answer to a very simple question. I mean, I really enjoy being in a band, like I really do, but this split, this whole process taken such a long time and so much energy. Like the part of me feels like I couldn't do that again. Like,
yeah,
like if you're in another band, that's another band that could potentially break up. Like at this point, I just feel like I've got to be. See, I get emotional. Just I feel like I've got to be protective of my well-being.
yeah.
And I know that it's kind of a sad thought, but I'm not going to break up with myself.
No.
So, yeah. Who knows? Again, yeah, I guess this is a sign that it's too soon to consider, you know?
Right. Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Given how you've embraced this way of working, but there are people, you are a big name in the rock and metal world now, that there's no denying of that. So people are going to want to see you on stage. We want you to come back to Toronto and play the Opera House again, you know?
Me too.
Which is such an amazing venue. I know it's a smaller one, but it's such a good venue.
Cool.
It's not going to be always unless you book a lot of time in between and bring maybe mobile recording studios with you. But it's going to be tough to continue the 9-to-5 song a month Patreon work style that you've embraced once this happens again. So how do you see the, let's call it, immediate future of your project, of the Charlotte Wessels band?
Yeah. So I kind of really want to keep doing this, if only for the reason that I'm learning so much. Like this is the first time ever that I've really been in charge of like every part of the process. And like if I listen to my productions of like a year ago, then it's quite a difference. So I think that this is just really good for my personal development to keep doing this. I think that at one point, like right now, I really approach it like every month I sit down and think, am I going to finish a song? Am I going to start from scratch? Like, what am I going to do this month? If touring is back on the table, then I think it should still be possible. But then, like when I started, I kind of had a collections of songs that were already finished, and I was just deciding in what order I will put them out. Like then maybe I'd have to say, okay, I can tour, but then I have to focus now on getting a couple of songs so that I don't actually have to be recording them while I'm on the road. And I also think, especially like the electronic songs, no, actually all of the songs, like I've never actually drummed anything for any of those songs. I know it's fake, but it's like, I also think that songs from the road, I mean, it's a pressure that you put on yourself. I'm not entirely sure if I want to put that pressure on myself, but maybe if you do both, if you have a couple of songs that you can put out, but still bring your gear, because I think that a song from the road, and then it could even be like a smaller song, because I think that for the audience, it could also be interesting. Like, so how does that change the songwriting process, you know, when you write from a bus, from the back of a bus, or yeah. Maybe you can even like include sounds from where you are. Or
This is a sonnet for your soul, that it always will remain untamed.
The amount of particularly female singers, younger singers that are getting started, that name you as one of their biggest inspirations is actually quite significant. Is that you were thrown into this whole world pretty young. You mentioned before, you know, I've been doing this for 16 years with Delain. You were in some projects before. Is that weird for you, given that you are still, you know, a young person? You're younger than I am. Like you're not at the by far. You're not at the end of your career. Being considered one of the leading women in alternative music in the hard rock space, is that something that you just never think about? Is that something that when you do think about is cool, is scary, is weird? How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, that's really special to hear, and that's lovely. When I was 13-year-old, I used to go to Within Temptation concerts, and I used to see, and I used to go to, you know, the Gathering. I saw Anneke performed, and
Yeah.
I had an interview with someone a while ago, and they asked me this question, which has always been weird to me, which is like, why did you want to be in a metal band? What was it like being a woman in a metal band? And I was like, yeah, but that's not weird to me, because I grew up and I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's representation. If you can see it, you can be it. And
Yeah.
I've had, you know, examples all around me. So for me to hear that people are telling you that story, but I am then that's to me like, oh, this full circle. I love it. Yeah, if anyone looks at you and think like, oh, if they can do that, then maybe I can do it. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's important. That's cool. That's no, yeah, that just makes me very happy. My classmates and I, when we were 13, we started, you know, 6 bands because we wanted to do the same things. And then we were even allowed on the stages in our local clubs because they had like open stage night where teenagers like us could have like a real audience. So yeah, that's of course a very personal story, but I think that it might have been similar, and I really hope, because for me, like, the representation was there, I could see it, so I had, you know, a lot of examples. It was not weird for me to be a woman in a metal band. But when I was in a metal band, I did get a lot of, like, you know, managers telling you to wear less clothing or to lose weight, or so I kind of hope that, for me, there wasn't kind of that bump for getting into the scene, but when I was in it, you know, you still had that quite some sexism there. So I hope that that the young women that you spoke to, that for them, they get a little less of that as well. That will be my my hope for the future, that there's less of those rigid expectations of what you're supposed to do and how you should portray yourself, and what kind of roles you can play in the band, and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, Charlotte, thank you for your personal journey in making this world a little better, step by step, song by song. And Charlotte, I want to thank you so much for taking all this time this morning with me, for being so open and honest with me. I really appreciate that. And I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see what next song is going to come out.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I've got superhuman skin, and this madness can't come in.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.